Hey everybody, this is Comics Coast to Coast live with Alex Turbin and Joe Leonardo, and we're hopefully getting him uh, situated, and we'll get him on here as soon as we can. Um, Bear with me one moment. And here we are.
Hold on, let me get my act here.
And I was going to say that wasn't too difficult, but we're still learning the process of doing the Instagram thing and transferring it over to YouTube, and so we got to get everything just right. But while Joe is doing that, today we're going to be looking at Todd McFarlane versus Erik Larsen in our head-to-head um, artist comparison. And last week we did Jim Lee and Adam Kubert, and Jim Lee thoroughly and completely trounced Adam, which I think everybody saw that coming a mile away. Um, but so now here we are on to our next duo. And are you with me, Joe?
I am. I'm here, bud. You got me?
Okay, so yep, I can't see your screen, so you're gonna have to kind of describe what it is that you're looking at or what
Well,
you
I
have on
have
your
the
screen.
Spawn compendium. It has the first 100 issues in it. No, I have all these. I have the first 50 Spawns and the actual issues, but it's just easier to look at them, from from a big book that has all of it in it or whatever.
Yeah, yep. I have probably 30 or 40 spawns. I don't of various different places. I think I because I started reading Spawn and I got it up to like 12 or 13 or 14 or something like that, and then I just stopped getting them. But I have some Spider-Mans from both Erik Larsen and Todd McFarlane, so that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I have. I brought some classic old school Savage Dragon here too. It's about Savage Dragon number 21. A little bit further down the road, and just kind of now that he's settled in and got the thing all sort of like dialed up or whatever, like because things are always a little rough at the beginning. You know what I mean? Comics and the
Sure.
story, it takes a little time to figure it out exactly what you're doing. I mean, it's like kind of funny, like some of these early drawings of Spawn where he
Yeah.
has where he's got a nose. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, and it's just like it's very jarring in some places. Like because especially because like now decades later, you know what I mean. He has been defined as that character without a nose, right? For
Yeah.
quite some time now. So it has a very sort of like, like there's a shot. I'm looking at a shot right here at the top of the page, and he just has this giant honker on it. You know what I mean? Like just a full. It's not just the nose. It's like a big,
Yeah.
like like what was that guy, Carl Malden? From the streets of San Francisco, kind of nose or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw an interview with Todd, and he said that one of the great things that he thought about Spawn was that he could make those mistakes and just kind of like explain it away. Like his cape, if his cape looks different, it's like a living thing, so it could do whatever it wants. Or his whole costume is really, a living thing, and it changes or whatever. And I guess that could be explained with his face. I mean it rots away as he uses his powers, right? So maybe you could
yeah,
explain some of
well,
that.
yeah. I mean, for sure, and it's just like it's hard to know how to address it because like he's the Spider-Man artist, and Spider-Man's got a nose, but then when you put the mask on, the nose is just sort of diminished or whatever, like you
Yeah,
draw the intention of it, but it's not really there. And then
yeah,
I think he's taking that approach on Spawn at first, but then anytime Spawn is like takes his mask off, all Peter Parker, you know what I mean? He has a
Yeah.
nose just like Peter Parker, but because he's a burned corpse, it still has this oddity to it. Like it just doesn't look
Right.
right, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I
Right.
mean,
Right.
obviously he doesn't know exactly how to approach drawing a man that's, a burned corpse either, you know what I mean? Like there's a million ways to approach something like that. You just have to be like, I'll try this. That looks pretty good, you know what I mean? Especially when you've
Right.
never drawn it before, you just have it in your head,
Right, right. All
Some
right,
people look
so
pretty
I
good.
guess we're starting with Todd McFarlane. This really
Yeah, he's the
gets.
king.
I mean, I assume this is going to be a multi videos talking about Todd. I assume that Todd McFarlane is going to beat Erik Larsen, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah. Oh, well. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. Erik Larsen's a pretty popular guy, and I think Savage Dragon probably might be like to the articulated comic book audience more popular than Spawn. You know what I mean? Simply because like
Right, but
Erik
as
Larsen is.
far as an artist, he didn't sell 1 million copies of
But yeah, I agree.
Savage
I mean,
Dragon.
I'd say that Todd McFarlane is the better artist. I mean, honestly, I don't like Erik Larsen at all. I never have. You know what I mean? Like, there's really nothing about that guy that I gel on. But I know people really enjoy his work, and I know people out there really like Savage Dragon. But another thing I wanted to propose is in the future was like I would like to, especially as comic book creators, I would like to visit the idea of the characters. Like we need to sit down and do like episodes on like why Wolverine is popular, why it worked,
Sure,
why X-Men
sure,
worked, why Superman is so good, why Batman is so
sure.
interesting. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
approach each one and think about the people that created them and their personalities and how their personalities delved into the work over time. Because that's what happens. Superman is
yeah.
the way he is because he's an immigrant story created by two immigrants. You know what I mean? Like they're
Wouldn't you
reflecting
wouldn't you
their
say
journey.
Wouldn't you say the popularity of a character though is, I mean, other than how they look, is the writer and the stories and stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much to it. Like it's the costume, it's the idea of what the level of power that they're dealing with is. There's the complexity of their personality and the type of universe they exist in. I mean, think about Deadpool. Think about
Yeah.
Batman, how vast the character's person. Think about Lobo. You know what I mean? Like how out their
Right, right,
personalities
right.
can
But
be.
what they look like isn't really doesn't define how popular they are. I mean, I think that how they look starts out the popularity, like Deadpool, like you were saying specifically. He has a certain look, and people like it. They gravitated towards it. But it wasn't until he had his own series and he broke the fourth dimension and or the fourth wall or whatever, and people started to really delve into the stories that he was doing, that he really, his popularity really blew
I
up.
think you're right. And I think it's a combination of all those things. I mean, Daredevil's another example of that. It's a character that was around for a long time. And it took someone coming along and really aligning the stars of the Daredevil universe to make people realize how cool he was. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, and
So
just the
definitely.
great writing and the great
Hmm.
scripting and dialogue and stuff. So
Yeah.
I really think that the popularity of characters starts out with the artist and then continues with the writer. Because if the writing isn't any good, then people aren't going to enjoy the character.
Yeah, that's probably true. And I mean, Todd was writing all these early spawns. He was doing all that himself. And he was writing those Spider-Mans that sold so much as well.
No. Oh, you mean yeah, Spider-Man number one
Yeah, the 8 million
and
copies or whatever it was that he sold, or what that. Yeah, Spider-Man reboot #1.
yeah,
And he
yeah.
was writing all that stuff.
I think it was 1 million.
Was it 1 million? Oh, maybe it's X-Men
I
that did the 8 million or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Because whenever Todd McFarlane would do like break some kind of barrier, Jim Lee would come along right after and like break it even more, like
Right,
pretty much
right.
every time.
It's
So
trippy because, like, I mean, Todd's always been a good artist. Like, looking at his stuff over on your side. But you could see there is still like that early sort of like, oh, it's not quite all there yet, kind of thing with his work in those pages. It just doesn't look as, it just has a bit more like it looks a bit more like Erik Larsen does. You know what I mean? than the way
See,
he ends up
I
looking
like this
by the
better
time
than
he's
the
in
Spawn
Spawn.
stuff. I like this
You
better
think
than the
so?
Spawn stuff.
Well, a lot of
Yeah,
people will
yeah,
say
a
that. A lot of
lot.
people will say that they like the rougher stuff better, that they don't really like the art when all the edges are sort of burnished off the sides and people become very much smoother, you know what I mean, and more aligned to, exactly what it is that's selling their work. And, when they get to that level where you're putting an anchor on every single page, you know what I mean, like that kind
Right,
of thing.
right. Right. I think maybe a lot of it for me has to do with the story, and like the stories were just so much better than Spawn for me anyway. And also uh I think having an editor and having to be and working with a writer and being beholden to Marvel and stuff, I think it kind of reined him in a little bit, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Well, I definitely think there's an element of that for sure because, when it's just you and you're in the vacuum, you know what I mean? Like then you're, I don't know. I mean, you might be some real brilliant guy and everything is great, and I mean, everybody gets, if you're good, you can have a decent run. But I think everybody, regardless, and I mean, like Frank Miller, Alan Moore, anybody, I think that your odds probably improve when you add another element to it. You know what I mean? Because like when
Yeah.
you get something so singular, it can be very good. You know what I mean? So I'm certainly not knocking any of that kind of thing. But when you add but when you're that's why like a lot of like say like when George Lucas is like writing the sequels to Indiana Jones or writing the sequels to the original Star Wars films, he would always team up with another screenwriter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
would be like him and Lawrence Kasdan or him and some other person. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're going to improve your odds by adding another sensibility to the idea, and it's better to have someone to reflect off of and someone
Oh,
who's willing
definitely.
to sit down and go, oh no, this isn't good, or oh yes, like that works out brilliantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
just like when you and I work together, my ideas are probably pretty vastly different than from what you come up with, and the stuff you come up with is pretty vastly different than the stuff I come
Yeah.
up with.
Yeah.
But when we meld them together, you get a much more interesting set of values than you do with either one of us on our own.
Oh, definitely. I really wish that there was like a universal indie editor that could just be like every independent artist editor, and
Oh my
fix
God, we should
mistakes
start that
and
service right
stuff
now.
like that.
Dude, we're gonna have to cancel this episode and just like put that on
And
ice
start
and
it.
don't ever let anyone hear that, dude. I mean, like you should be doing that right now. That should be our next project. Online editing for freaking independent
Well, they
comic book
they do
creators.
that. Well, I could never be an editor because my spelling and everything like that is atrocious. So I'm out of the editing business completely. But they do that. They do that for books. They have editors that you can pay, and they'll go through your book and you know fix whatever needs fixing and
It's
stuff
funny
like
because
that.
like
So
I've had one person like attempt it in my books, and they said that like because like some like I there's parts of my book that have made up pigeon languages in them where the words are like
yeah,
made up, and he said that sometimes he was like I was having such a hard time. He goes bouncing back and forth from your fake words to like real words that I didn't always
right,
understand when you were misusing the real words or whatever. You know what I
right,
mean? He said it
right,
was like
right.
super hard or whatever. Like
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
need to
So
break
so
anybody's
let's get
brain.
into let's get into why you. So you're not a big Todd McFarlane fan.
No, I've actually I think Todd's great. I mean, his style is a little bit different than what I normally like. I mean, he's not a crosshatch guy, and I'm a crosshatch guy. I guess is what it boils down to.
Yeah,
He does
yeah.
squigglies. You know, what I mean, he does
He
a
does
much more
quickly.
impressionistic squiggly
Yeah,
thing. As opposed
yeah,
to the crosshatch. But
yeah.
I think Todd
I
is
love the squigglies.
fantastic. I mean, I thought there were like I said, I have 1 through 100. I want to say it's 1 through 100. I think that's where I conked out, where I just felt like I had gotten enough of it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I made it
yeah,
to 100, and then I had a couple of signed issues in there as well. Like I think I have one Todd issue signed and one Craig Capullo issue signed. So I felt like I had accomplished whatever at that point. But I think Spawn was fantastic. I love Todd's art, especially those early issues where he's really pouring it on. That's a gorgeous. I'm looking at one of the very early issues right here, and it's a
Yeah.
very gorgeous, iconic image. You'll see when you look at the video later, and it's one of those one. It's the 9999. You know what I mean? It's like the first time we
Yeah.
see his reader and all that stuff, and it's literally like his appearance. And on the very next one, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not, is that massive, just so cool looking double page spread of him on the side of the building, like it's just like this it's the most iconic early picture of Spawn. And he's just firing. It's just Todd McFarlane firing on all cylinders. And it looks
So
so
so for
amazing.
you, so for you, you like Todd McFarlane because of Spawn, pretty much.
I mean, I guess like I don't have any of the Spider-Man stuff. I'm not familiar with it. And I wasn't even familiar with Todd until Spawn came along and I
Yeah.
saw that. Like I wasn't, following any of those guys. Like I wasn't looking at Erik Larsen. I definitely was
Right.
looking at Walt, and Jim or whatever on their X-Men books. But
Yeah.
no, man, I had no idea Todd
See,
was out here
see,
just
for
like
me, I
crushing it
mean,
like that.
Spider-Man, so much of it is Todd McFarlane's poses. I mean, he reinvented pretty much the poses that Spider-Man has. He talks about his webbing a lot, and that is true. That is quite a big thing that he introduced. But he also, I mean, just his Spider-Man poses, but also just the way he does things like this isn't full silhouette, but this is a classic Todd McFarlane
Yeah, I
kind
know
of
where he
thing
does
where
that thing where
it's
he
in the
draws the
darkness.
silhouette, but then lets the colorist like deal with it or whatever.
Right, right,
Like,
right,
yeah,
right.
that's classic Todd. No, he's
Yeah,
fantastic. I mean, he is he's the image guy. I mean, him and Liefeld, I feel like those two are the guys that created image. You know what I mean? And
oh
then,
yeah, yeah,
Liefeld bailed out, because he's such a temperamental child or whatever. And then it was, I mean, Todd is the Todd father, like, and he just is, he's, the epitome of an amazing artist. And then he also, and I want to give him basically full marks for this, is that he is the creator of the modern image style of page layout. His
yeah,
page layout is almost as originally and interesting as, like, say, Neil Adams did back in, the early 70s. So Neil Adams shattered the idea of how pages were laid out in the 70s. He took the whole idea of it and just like turned it on its ear. And, Todd did that same kind of thing. He was able to cram in, a lot of storytelling with just a few big panels, you know what I mean, that were more appropriate. And I tend to work in that style still to this day. Although, like, I have to say, the latest book that we're working on, To Be Alliance, I have tried to embrace the smaller panels and doing a little bit more storytelling stuff, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Just to kind of hone my art and to learn that idea, because I'm pretty good at doing the big anchor pages, you know what I mean? So I can always fall back on that. But sometimes you want to
Yeah.
get in intimate and tell the story in small pieces, you know what I mean? And that's something you need to learn too. So I have been embracing that kind of thing lately. But I think Todd is, like, Jim Lee didn't do that, Mark Silvestri
No,
didn't do that, none of those guys. It wasn't Liefeld either, It was Todd. Todd McFarlane created the huge, you know, layout, 4 shots on the panel, everything has an anchor, and you'll get
I'm
a
not
lot of,
entirely
like,
sure. I'm not entirely sure that was a good thing though,
well, I think it is. In my opinion, it was a
because
fantastic thing.
yeah, you love it, but the storytelling suffers. The storytelling 100% suffers.
I don't know if that's right, dude. I just don't know if that's true. Like, I think it depends on the
I
person
think
reading
so.
it, like,
It
I
it
don't
does,
think
and it does.
I just don't think it does, man. Like, these early issues are just as much fun to read as any Daredevil. They're just as much fun to read as any comic I ever enjoyed. These are just some cool, fun to read. I mean, I don't love it like, say, the way I loved ElfQuest, right? I'm not in love with the character of Spawn and all his universe, but it's still fun and interesting to me. And I came back and I read them over and over again, especially early on. Now, if Spawn would have been rad if he would have, like, had it going somewhere and resolved it. You know what I mean? Or if he had resolved 2 or 3 of them by now, like the way,
Yeah,
like Robotech resolved and then started over, the same or
yeah,
something kind of like
yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
but they
See,
never did.
I think he lost his storytelling. Look at this page here. I don't think there's anything like that in Spawn. You know, it's just some dude doing paperwork, and Todd puts all of this action and emotion into it, and you know, it's just this little scene, but
Let,
it's a big in the story. And
let me ask you.
I feel like he, instead of this, he would have a splash page of Spider-Man.
Let me ask you: is he writing that, or is someone else writing that?
This is David Michelin is the writer.
That's why, because he's not writing it. If he was
Yeah,
writing it, it wouldn't have any of that stuff in it. It has that
yeah,
stuff because someone else wrote it. You know what I mean?
yeah. I also love
Yeah.
his close-ups. He
I mean, he's
does
fantastic.
fantastic close-ups.
But we spent enough time on the Todd Father.
Yeah.
He's rocking. Now let's get over here and take a look at a little bit of Erik Larsen because he deserves some time too, and we don't want to take too
All right.
long on this deal.
Wait. Let's back up for a second. If you were going to put Todd, if you were going to rank him in your top, would you put him in your top 10?
No, no,
No, no,
no.
top 20, top 20.
I don't even know if I would ever put him in anywhere on any list for me. But
Well, you got to have him
if I was
top
saying
100, top
layouts,
100,
if
huh?
I was saying layouts, I would say he's one of the number one guys, right along Neil Adams. But as an artist, I might put him somewhere like. I mean, I don't really. I mean, he does cool capes. You know what I mean? I love the way he did capes, and I do rip off his capes a little bit because there's not much I steal from Todd. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
steal from the artists that I like. You know what I mean? I look at how they
yeah,
do things and I copy that. You know, like
yeah,
how does this guy do pouches? I copy it. How does this guy draw boots? Then I copy it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I don't
yeah.
copy their boots, but I'll look at how like he did it and then try to emulate that. And that's just like how I do stuff. So if I don't look at you, then I'm probably not that interested in whatever it is that you're doing, And it's like he's cool, but I think I like Greg Capullo's Spawn way more than Todd McFarlane's, And it's not
Yeah.
like if Todd McFarlane suddenly was like, "Oh, I'm drawing this new book," and it was like, unless it was something I totally was interested in, I wouldn't care because I don't really care about his
Right.
art that much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's probably in my top 20.
Right on. I mean,
If
he's a
if
great
I had to
artist.
guess, if I had to
I
guess,
mean,
maybe
dude,
top, because
I'm gonna just,
I would get his stuff religiously. He's why I got Spider-Man. You know, he's
dude,
why, because I was reading the Hulk, and then I never got Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden he started drawing Spider-Man, and I started to get Spider-Man. So
I'll tell you
that
what, bro.
says quite a bit.
Like I'm looking at these Larson pages, right? Like I know you can't see my pages right now, and this
Yeah.
is just a random beautiful accident, okay? Because I just grabbed this randomly out of my collection, and I have to
Yeah.
say, this is fantastic.
I think he's a
I'm
good,
looking,
solid artist.
I'm
The
looking
thing
at
is,
this book, dude.
He's so overshadowed by Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and Silvestri that he gets overlooked a lot. But I
I
think his
want to
stuff
say,
is very solid.
yeah, it's just these pages are impactful. Now the art is not overly spectacular, but it has a wonderful Walter Simonson quality to it, kind of like this is what I'm looking at here. There's an awesome pinup from Mark Pasella and Dan Panosian. Dan Panosian always does really nice inks too, man. You'll see when you look at the
Yeah,
video there. It's beautiful, beautiful looking stuff. But
yeah,
this
yeah,
this particular issue apparently, well, see, he's really doing some fantastic stuff here. Because okay, like the opening pages of this are just splashes, right? You'll see it's gorgeous. It opens up on the starry night. This gorgeous tower, and the top of it is exploding Die Hard style, right? And then it opens up to this huge 2-page spread, right? And it's
yeah.
everything exploding. But see, the first page is in beautiful color, and then the double page spread is white and black.
Huh.
So you get this feeling of like he's being saturated in the explosion or whatever. Like it's just white, you know what I mean? And you're seeing skeletons that are being flashed, sort of like it's flashing so hard that anything that isn't like the Savage Dragon is being just completely flash burned. And then
Yeah,
the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 of the pages, just one after the other, are full page shots of the action, and it's happening
yeah,
in this beautiful starry lit night. And then he's just like, I'm thinking like, oh, this is just going to be a full on splash page book, is what I was thinking at the beginning. You know how they'll do those sometimes, where the whole book will
yeah,
be
yeah,
one splash after another, and he is doing that effectively. I think he might be. This might be him dealing with a big boss in the finale we're seeing. You know what I mean? I don't read it, so I don't know. I'm a little outside the will,
Right.
but this is gorgeous stuff, and just a beautiful shot of him falling from the top of him killing the bad guy and then falling from the top of the tower. But then it switches over, and we get a page of
What
with,
issue is that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 panels on one page. You know what I mean? In the Dark
Right.
Knight style with just little rectangles lined up perfectly. You know what I mean?
He's obviously, even if he's not one of our favorites, he's obviously a very talented artist. Like anybody
Yes.
that can, he did at least one issue. I'm not entirely sure if it was one or more issues where he changed his style to emulate the Saturday cartoons. Like one panel was Calvin
Sure.
Hobbes style. The other panel, next panel was Peanut style, and so that takes a lot of talent,
Yeah. I
really.
recall the kayfabe guys doing an episode on,
Yeah,
I think it was issue, it might have been the 300th issue, or it was like right around there. And it was all done in Charles Schultz style, like the whole
yeah,
issue,
yeah, yeah,
the characters were all, and it was fantastic. So obviously, I think that's right. This is a wonderful thing to be experiencing right here on the video. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a big fan of this stuff, but looking at this stuff right now is making me rethink that. Okay,
yeah,
it really
yeah.
is. Like, these are pretty gorgeous, man, and I think anyone would be very happy to be drawing a book that, because I mean, the art isn't it's very over the top and cartoony. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Savage Dragon isn't drawn with realistic proportions. It's much more along the lines of like the Todd McFarlane. I mean, I'm sorry, the Rob Liefeld kind of like vibe or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
where things are pushed to
He's
a much
almost a
more.
cross between the two.
He really is, yeah, because things are pushed more to like sort of Hanna-Barbera level. You know what I mean? As far as like the anatomy on the characters and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. But
But he's just
a lot of that, I think, though, is that he started doing Spider-Man right after Todd McFarlane, and I think that Marvel either asked him to, or that's why they got him to draw a lot like McFarlane. Like this page right here is vintage McFarlane, with the big eye
Yeah, dude, with
and
the
stuff like that.
sidelong panels. Those are so hard
Yeah,
to work into because there's times, dude, when I'm always like, I want to have that. Like I'm trying to, I'll be trying to design the page with a long panel at the front or whatever, and then trying to figure out how to make it work with the other panels. And it can be tricky. But if you want to
yeah,
do that long face thing, like that close up of the face and the eye, with the long panel, that's so totally Todd. And I think Marvel has a great history of really like burning the greatness out of artists by throwing them into the fire like that. Like John Romita having to draw after like Fantastic Four or whatever after Jack Kirby and that kind of thing, or
yeah, yeah,
taking
yeah.
over after Ditko. Like you're just like your feet are in the fire, man, and you either make it or you break it. Like
Yeah. Hey, Love Petey, thanks for joining the stream. You can I don't know if you can watch. Can you watch previous aspects of a live stream? Anyway,
well,
the whole video is going to be on
I was gonna say,
YouTube
yeah, it'll be able
after
to
this.
once it's up on YouTube. But
Yeah,
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 man, I have to say these pages are pretty gorgeous, and this makes me want to sit down and read this comic, and I think I probably will, because yeah, this might be my read tonight. Because
yeah,
man, dude, this is pretty awesome, and it's just like sometimes you just got to step back and look at what someone else is doing. Like this starry lit night he has right here on this page is absolutely gorgeous, man. I mean, that is
yeah.
cool, and there's not very much happening on that page, and it's meant to slow you down and make you pause or whatever. And this whole thing just makes me rethink my starry nights. You know what I mean? Like you just
Did you
like look
say
at this and go,
did you say what issue
what?
that is?
It is it's number 21.
21. So
Yeah, and
you don't have number one, right?
I don't. I don't. I think
Yeah.
I got maybe 2 or 3 issues. I have the one where Savage Dragon and Bad Rock fight.
Yeah.
It's a pretty legendary issue or whatever. Like it is the actual issue when kayfabe looked at Savage Dragon for the first time, that was the one they picked or whatever. And
Right.
I think I have maybe like two other ones, you know. And I was looking for them today. And, you know, I'll say at least this. They're not where they're supposed to be because I was looking at them for ideas. I think when I am, because it was an issue where Savage Dragon was in like battling a sewer monster. And I think when I was drawing that Max Murder I did with him in the sewer fighting that monster, I was like drawing inspiration from some Savage Dragon stuff. So it's somewhere it's not
Yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah. My comics are always not where they're supposed to be. But
But
sometimes
this
that's a
is
good thing because you'll be looking through stuff and you'll see an issue of something. You'll be like, hey, I didn't know. I forgot that I had that.
yeah, I was literally doing that this morning, dude. Like, that's
Yeah.
funny. I was going through my stuff looking for this and finding all kinds of like delights. Like I found a bunch of Punisher War journals, like the ones you were
Oh,
showing
yeah.
last time and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
like I was like, oh, I should have got out some of these. But yeah, but this
The
is
Stan
also
Lee stuff.
written by Erik Larsen. He is still writing this, and you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
inking and telling his story. And man, that's pretty cool. So hats
It's
off to
the
this guy. I
it's
just
the
don't know,
longest
like
running it's the longest running indie book, right?
yeah, it is. I once heard David Cho. You know who David Cho is?
No, it
David
sounds
Cho.
familiar.
He's a fine artist, but
Yeah.
he does like pop art. He'll do like these crazy like super impressionistic like Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. And he does all kinds of pop art stuff. And his work is worth millions of dollars or whatever. And he was a
Yeah.
close friend of the kayfabe guys, and he was often a guest on their shows. You can look up David Cho and their thing; you'll find dozens of episodes where he,
Yeah.
co-hosts the show with them. And he talks about he goes like, you know, Erik Larsen's a great artist. He goes, but drawing, Savage Dragon for 30 years and having like drawn and inked and freaking be writing that thing for as long as he has. He goes, it might actually just be a actively horrible display of OCD.
Yeah. 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 I've
This
actually
might just
had
be the
quite a
most
lot of
basic
conversations with
OCD ever.
I've had a lot of conversations with Erik Larsen. He's a big Twitter guy, and we've actually talked a lot about comics, and because I always brought up the fact that they cost too much, and he was always like giving me reasons why the price was adequate or whatever. And I'm like, no, no, comics have gone down sales wise, and when they go down in sales, the first thing you do isn't raise the price, you know. Like I sell stuff
Yeah,
online, and if something doesn't sell, I don't raise the price. Then it's never going to sell. You lower the price so somebody will buy it.
yeah, that's definitely something people could argue for sure.
So we went through quite a lot of arguments. Him
I've
and
actually had a handful of conversations with all people, Walter Simonson. He was actually very
yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
see
I've
that,
talked to him a
like
few
one
times.
time, it started off because like he had posted a drawing of Elric, and nobody knew who it was or what was happening, and contextually in the drawing, and it was from the '70s, and I knew exactly what it was, exactly what was happening, and I was questioning him. I was like, "Oh my God, are you working on an Elric project right now?" And he came back on because I was the only out of like 15 comments, I was the only person that knew what it was. He was like, no, this is from when I was in the '70s, and I was
Yeah,
doing this and this and that. And we had this project that never came anywhere. And I was just like, oh my God, dude, that would be so amazing for you to do something like that. It's like, because fans like me would love to see a person like your skill, working on a project of that nature. And he was like, he got back, he was like, oh, I definitely am like interested in things like that. And he goes, and I would if it wasn't like a thing with rights and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, that's
yeah,
literally why he started up his own version of Thor, that version of Thor that he does now or whatever, the Ragnarok
right,
Thor that he does, because he loves the Thor mythology and he loves all that early '70s sci-fi stuff. And that's his way of being able to freely explore those themes, without any
yeah,
kind of repercussions from something like that. So it's super fun
yeah,
to hear, like artists like talk about their stuff, like, face to
yeah,
face like
yeah.
that, and have
It's
someone
great.
yeah, his clout come back and actually speak to you in
Yeah.
person or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. People complain about social media like all the time, and I do too. It's like a scourge on humanity, but it's also fantastic to be able to just talk to like anybody that you admire or whatever. I've had conversations. I've talked to Walt Simonson. I've talked to Neil Gaiman. I've talked to various other artists and writers and stuff that I
Yeah,
really
the
admire,
thing
and
is,
it's a fantastic thing.
social media is just like any tool, and it can be used to destroy something, and it can be used, you know, to fix things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yep.
social media, you don't have to death scroll through all the violence and terrible stuff, you know what I mean? I just go on, I look for my buddies, and all
Yeah.
honesty, like I'll have to scroll through 5 or 6 bad things between you and Jamie and, you know,
Yeah.
and Paul and whoever else is, you know, posting, who I want to take the time to like their stuff. And I have to spend a few minutes going by a lot of negativity that the internet just wants to feed me, you know what I mean? But I don't have to engage
Yeah.
with it, you know, like I can just skip it,
Yeah.
skip it, skip
Yeah.
it. So I find my
So
buddies,
it's
and then
something I got to learn. I
yeah,
got to
once
learn to
I
skip.
once I like my buddies, then I'm out, you know, and I just put it down because
Yeah.
I never needed it before. I don't need it now. I don't need to be
Yeah.
fed all that negativity. I don't use it for that. You know, I can look at the news and get, you know, the quick blurb of it. I don't need 20 million different people's opinions on it, you know, like it's too much
Yeah.
chaos on the internet
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. All right. So, I got to go. Like I said, somebody's coming to look at my car. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
so give us a an outro for
Well, right
comics
now
from
I'm
coast
just
to
gonna
coast.
say, Alex and I are comic book creators, and I'm working on some awesome comic books. One of the things I'm working on right now is the Savage Spear of Crom, and I had a pretty good week here, and I got a few pages almost done, and we're gonna be finishing this thing up
Yeah.
shortly, and I'm
I'm almost
excited to
done with
share this
mine
with
too.
people. And I'm the creator of Six Lords of Sound, and Alex and I are working together, and we are the creators of the Entropy Alliance. And you can contact me and Instagram at my Instagram, which is Awfully World on Instagram, all one word, AWFULLYWORLD. Alex, what's going on with you?
I produce a comic book every month called Random Access. It's a full size, full color comic book, and it's 12 pages, usually with backup stories by Paul Courtjohn or Chris Knox, or basically really just anybody. We're up to issue 31, which went out to people last month, so we're getting up to 32, which will be out this month. Um, and you can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com. Or you could message me at alexturbin0441 at Yahoo, which is my email, or alexturbin0441 at Instagram. So,
That's
and
right,
I
you guys.
appreciate
So,
all the support.
and don't forget to vote on the on who you like better, Todd Mcfarlane or Erik Larsen. This is a tough one, I'm going to say. This
Yeah.
one is not quite as easy as some of the other ones. I'm not sure which way I'll vote after looking at that Erik Larsen book. It really kind of
It,
shook me and knocked me off my feet a little bit. It was fantastic.
it's easy.
And
It's easy for me. Easy for me. McFarlane's
right
in the
on.
20s. Erik Larsen, I don't even think he's in the top 50. I might have
I
to.
don't
I
know,
might have
man.
to make a
When
list
you
of
after you look at the video and
everybody.
see the book I put up, you might be thinking a little different, dude. It's pretty gorgeous, man. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah. So Erik Larsen and Todd McFarlane. If you want to vote on the Jim Lee and the Kubert brothers thing last week, please go by and vote. We would like more and more people to vote on these things because the more people that voted on them, the more we understand your opinions and we more understand our fans out there. We'd like to say thank you to the handful of people that watch the show regularly because we don't get that much love on YouTube. But we do have a few close friends that are always viewing, and we'd just like to take a moment to just stop and say thank you to all those guys that always tune in every week. You guys are awesome. And Alex and I appreciate you guys. We're about to get out of here. Erik Larsen and Todd McFarlane, don't forget to vote. Go ahead and give them their marching orders, Alex.
It's like I always say, whether you're an artist or writer or a fan, keep on creating.
All right, you guys. Have a good day.